Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Stone. Welcome to the Park Authority Board and Committee and Board meetings this evening, October 9, 2024. It is at 5:50 p.m. and I'll make the requisite motions so that we can conduct these meetings virtually. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically, the Park Authority Board needs to make certain findings for the record to evidence our compliance with Virginia Code 2.2-3708.2. These motions address this compliance. I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each board member participating in these meetings to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member's voice. We will go alphabetically. As this evening progresses, if additional board members will join us, I will ask them to verify their audibility and location as well. So I do not see Abeno, correct?
Correct.
All right. So Bill, you're up first.
Bill Bowie, participating with my residents in the Hunter Mill District.
Dr. Carter is not with us yet, correct?
Correct.
Yes, I am. I'm
sorry.
I'm here by phone.
All right.
Oh, you're
I'm
Dr.
here by
Carter.
phone.
Okay.
Yes, I am in the car, and this is Cynthia Jacobs Carter participating from Franconia District.
All righty. Maggie?
Yeah, Maggie Godbold, participating from my home in the Sully District.
Do we have Linwood with us?
I do not see Linwood.
I didn't think so. I didn't notice them either. Tim?
Tim Hackman from my home in the Dranesville District.
All right. Ron?
Ron Kendall, I'm participating from my home in the Mason District.
Did not see Faisal. Ken?
Ken Quincy, participating from my home in the Providence District.
And I didn't see Michael. Jonah, are you
No,
with us?
Michael's here.
No, Mike's here.
Oh, Mike is here. Michael,
Yep.
you're up.
Mike Thompson participating from my home in the Springfield district.
Jonah, are you here? No, I didn't think so. And I am Kyle Stone, participating from my office at George Mason University. All right. At this point, I'm passing the virtual gavel to Vice Chair Maggie Godbold so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of this board.
This is Maggie Godbold. You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Tim Hackman, I second.
This is Maggie again. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. That motion passes.
Thank you, Maggie. Second, I move that the Park Authority Board will hold an all virtual public meeting because circumstances warrant the holding of an all virtual public meeting, including but not limited to the convenience of an all virtual meeting.
This is Maggie Godbold. You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Tim Hackman, I second.
Thanks. This is Maggie again. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right, Mr. Chairman, that motion's approved.
Thank you, Maggie. This is Kyle Stone again. Third, I move that the Park Authority Board has not had more than 2 all virtual public meetings or more than 50% of its meetings rounded up to the next whole number, whichever is greater, during the calendar year since the emergency order was lifted. And 2, the Park Authority Board's last meeting was not an all virtual public meeting.
This is Maggie Godbold. You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Tim Hackman, I second.
Thanks, Tim. This is Maggie again. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. That motion passes.
All right. This is Kyle Stone again. As a result, I further move that the Park Authority Board conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated video and audio conferencing line, and that the public may access this meeting by calling 571-429-5982 and entering access code 14267318.
This is Maggie Godbold again. You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Tim Hackman, I second.
Thanks, Tim. This is Maggie again. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Mr. Chairman, that motion passes.
All right, this is Kyle Stone again. Finally, I move that the meeting of the Park Authority Board to be held this day is in conformance with this body's all virtual public meeting policy. And as such, the meeting notice indicated that the public meeting will be all virtual, and the notice stated that the method by which the Park Authority Board chose to meet would not be changed unless the Park Authority Board provided a new meeting notice in accordance with VA Code 2.2-3707. Public access to this meeting is provided by electronic communication means that allows the public to hear all participating members of the Park Authority Board. Audiovisual technology, if available, is used to allow the public to see the members of the Park Authority Board during this meeting. A phone number, email address, or other live contact information is provided to the public to alert the Park Authority Board if electronic transmission of this meeting fails for the public. And if such transmission fails, the Park Authority Board will take a recess until public access is restored. A copy of the proposed agenda and all agenda packets have been made available to the public electronically. At the same time, such materials were provided to the members of the Park Authority Board. The public is afforded the opportunity to comment through electronic means, including written comments at meetings where public comment is customarily received, and there are no more than 2 members of the Park Authority Board together in one physical location.
This is Maggie Godbold. You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
This is Tim Hackman. I second.
Thanks, Tim. This is Maggie again. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Mr. Chairman, the motion is approved.
Thank you much, Maggie. This is Kyle again. Now that that's all been taken care of, we can get on with our business this evening. And Bill, your committee is the first on the docket.
All right, this is Bill Bowie, and this is I'd like to call the Communications and Community Engagement Committee meeting to order. And Jay Cole, you can introduce the item.
Good evening. Good evening. This is Jay Cole. I'm calling in from sunny, very sunny Atlanta. Behind me is Mercedes-Benz Stadium, for those interested. So we're here today to talk about the presentation that we're planning for equity outreach. It is talking about the equitable outreach that we did after the HHS meeting with HRNA. So we're showing you the exact presentation that we're planning on showing to the HHS committee on October the 15th. Next slide. Okay, so just a little bit of a reminder where we are in 2020. We created our first equity action plan. I will say that our equity action plan is used as a model across the county. It's very thorough. We are very proud of our equity action plan. And then in May of 2021, we first went to the board during a joint Park Authority Board of Supervisors meeting, and we presented our implementation of One Fairfax and the issues that we see with the revenue fund specifically. Next slide. This slide. So this slide has been actually updated for summer 2024 numbers, but on the left, it shows the 2 graphs that we show all the time that really compares our program participation by household income with the county population, and our program participation by race and ethnicity with the county population. As you can see, and then we have RecPAC on the right just as a sort of equity guide. As you can see, summer camps are 63%, 63% over $200,000 per year. Our rec center members are 33% over 200,000, and our classes are 37% compared to the county's 34% over 200,000 per year. And you can look at the rest of that breakdown. When you look at program participation by race, our classes are 64% white. Our summer camps are 65% white, and our rec center memberships are 70% white compared to the county population, which is about 49.5. We're a majority minority county per the last census. One of the things we talked about is that our reliance on fees means that our agency's public recreation programs have to charge more than other local jurisdictions, and in reality, jurisdictions around the country, and more than a lot of our residents can afford. So as a result of our revenue model, our participation skews wealthier and whiter than both the population of Fairfax County and participation in general fund programs like RecPac. Next slide. So then what we did was we came back to the BOS during an HHS committee. They actually, we received funding in FY22 dollars that actually paid for us to contract out HRNA to do a funding for equity study. We went to the HHS committee in July of 2022 to talk about the implementation of that study, and then came back. HRNA began their review September of 2022, and then we reported back the results in December of 2022. The Sully Community Center, we got more funding in summer of 2023, and then we started the Sully Community Center pilot program that Sarah is going to talk about a little bit. We added a timeline for when we began implementing the Wonder Wagon, because that is a huge equity initiative, and when the consolidation of RecPac happened. It really is also an equity initiative. Next slide. So what our hypothesis was before we went into the HRNA study was that our recreational services are too expensive for some residents in Fairfax County, which impacts their ability to participate in programs and services. Now, before we say that, we want to make sure we go back and we test that theory. And so we did a significant amount of equitable outreach. Next slide. And we really had a three-legged stool to assessing what the barriers really are to accessing our programs. Now, three-legged stool included one, Fairfax as the framework for addressing inequities. The second leg is the 2023 Sully Community Center pilot program that we use as a case study, and Sarah will be going over that. And third is really partnering with NCS as a key partner for inclusive community engagement for survey outreach, and Deidre will be talking about that. So I will turn it over to Sarah to talk about our Sully Community Center pilot program.
Good evening, everyone. Sarah Baldwin, Deputy Director for the Park Authority. As you may remember from our summer programs report out last year, in the summer of 2023, we piloted a sliding fee scale with the camps at Sully Community Center. And next slide. Little background, which I know all of you are aware of, but some of the board members may not be. The Park Authority partnered with NCS to fund the second gym when the Sully Community Center was developed. Since the Park Authority and NCS have very different funding models, we wanted to ensure that there was equitable access, especially to camps that were occurring at Sully. So in coordination with NCS, we developed a pilot program in the summer of 2023 and again in 24. And the strategies as a part of that pilot program were to implement a sliding fee scale so we could test that, to reduce barriers to access. So transportation was provided for the participants that were a part of the summer camp program. We wanted to ensure that the community was aware of the opportunity, and we wanted to ensure that we were addressing capacity concerns. So we wanted to ensure that the folks that were going to be included in the sliding fee scale could access the camp. So there was some management of the participation lists for the camps to ensure that they would be accommodated. And then ultimately the goal of the program was to ensure that Park Authority camps at Sully reflected the demographics of the local community. So the result of the program was pretty phenomenal in terms of the reach that we were able to get by providing a sliding fee scale and the additional accommodations. Next slide. One of the key parts of the pilot program was to ensure that the individuals that we were targeting in the local community were aware that this sliding fee scale was available. And by doing that, we partnered with NCS and their staff, and they actually outreached to the communities and identified the families and the children that would benefit by being a part of the pilot. They actually met with the families, helped them complete the registration forms, inform them of the camps, and help them identify the camps that would best meet their needs. And as you can see from the survey results from the participants that were enrolled in the program, staff assistance in enrolling them in the program or helping to enroll them in the program and making them aware of the program was important to more than 80% of the people that were enrolled. And this is something that we'll touch on a little bit further as we talk about the implementation of our equity plan and how important outreach will be to ensure that we are including the demographics that we want to in our programs. Next slide. So our target communities were, and if you're familiar with the Sully Community Center, the community that surrounds the center is fairly affluent. However, there are segments of the community within a 5-mile radius where they have been identified as opportunity areas of the county. So we identified those 2 locations in coordination with NCS, Coates Elementary School and the Meadows of Chantilly were the 2 locations that we identified the majority of the participants that were included in the program, and we also provided transportation from those sites. Next slide. So eliminating barriers was an important aspect of the program. One of the ways that I mentioned that we did that was through providing transportation. But we wanted to know when we surveyed the families what they would have done if they didn't have access to this program. And the majority of individuals would have stayed home. So there is a great benefit, we know, in having children enrolled in summer camp programs that are safe, that are structured, and that are enriching. So the individuals that were not in the program or the individuals, if they didn't have access to this program, likely would have stayed home and would have not had that enriching program to participate in during the summer. Next slide. And then the results of the program are also very telling. When you look at the enrollment of individuals in the sliding fee scale or our pilot program, 92% of the enrollees were non-white. If you compare that to the demographics that Jay showed earlier, if you look at the demographics of all FCPA revenue programs, not including RecPAC, only 34% of the campers enrolled in those programs are non-white. I'm sorry, next slide. And then I believe now I am turning it over to Deidrea.
Good evening, everyone. Deidrea Grayson, Division Director for Marketing and Communications. As Sarah mentioned, we wanted to continue the train of intentional work following the Sully case study with outreach. And this came out of a request from the Board of Supervisors to make sure that we were stepping a bit outside of our Sully bubble and expanding our reach to get some learnings and really understand if cost truly is the barrier to participation in our recreational programs and services. Next slide, please. So what did we do? We really, again, wanted to be intentional and launch an inclusive outreach effort that expanded across all of our districts and making sure that we engage NCS similar to what we did with Sully in inclusive community engagement. We were able to host a series of community meetings, but we were also able to partner with key organizational stakeholders within a community, whether it be civics oriented, other nonprofits, but also faith-based institutions that we were able to plant seeds with and hopefully further engage in future activities. If we go to the next slide. We were also able to make sure that not only we wanted to connect one-to-one via the public meetings, but also make sure that we have collateral materials, meaning posters and outreach placed in the hubs, as well as leverage our digital communications via email and organic social to promote that this survey was available to take, and here's the link and or QR code to do so. Ben Boxer and his team activated a press and broadcast plan that garnered over 39K impressions. So really wanted to spread awareness that this was available, and we were looking for that input from the community. And then once we were able to direct them to our surveys, the surveys were available in 7 to 8 languages to make sure that we were accessible for all of the different cohorts within our community. Total respondents were about 2,400, and the survey period was very quick or brief between February and April. So definitely a short period for some very quick learnings. And if we go to the next slide, we can start to dig into those. No surprise here. Again, Sully was a great rolling thunder, if you will, in helping us understand what we thought to be true. But when we were able to split some of our questions across race and ethnicity as well as income, cost rises to the top. We know nationally we're hearing things about inflation. We know that the cost of living in general is high, even if salaries and income are high as well. But cost is definitely the determining factor for engagement when it comes to our programs. Distance or proximity and awareness are a close second or third, but we definitely see costs very relevant to members of our non-white communities as well as households with an income of under 75K and honestly under 132K, because that line becomes a bit thin when it comes to what are you willing to pay for. If we go to the next slide. A few of the key findings. We mentioned that cost is the top barrier. And again, this is a first sprinkle, if you will, of learnings that we hope to continue over the next few years as we get closer to the launch of the sliding fee scale as a solution. Distance and lack of familiarity are also key considerations that we should have as we talk about our outreach plan and how we plan to hold the hands of our neighbors to engage with us and understand the process in which they need to do so. Rec Center memberships, while we are underpriced when it comes to our competitors, they are perceived as expensive across the board. But we do have some competitive promotions that we market throughout the year to help, manage that perception of expensive, but it's something that we can continue to dig deeper into understanding the why as we go forward. Awareness. We haven't really talked a lot about marketing just yet, but top of funnel really is awareness building. And while we are Fairfax County Park Authority, we have a substantial amount of programs. We are definitely in the Fairfax County portfolio. There is still an opportunity to maintain that awareness and grow it amongst segments that are either new to the county or maybe have fallen outside of our purview. So we want to make sure that we continue to promote our programs wherever we find our community members. Black and Hispanic Latino households remain the most underrepresented in program enrollment overall. But when we dug a little bit behind the numbers, swim is actually one of the great equalizers across the segments. And perhaps that is because it's a life skill. So if I'm going to choose or select what I invest in, or if I'm going to prioritize rather, then let's start with swim. So that there could be some opportunity there. But again, we need to dig a little deeper into the why. And then going back to how we split the data between race and ethnicity and income, we want to make sure that we don't conflate the two and use them interchangeably. Underrepresentation and awareness could be a cost, could be due to cost, but there could also be a familiarity gap and potentially a cultural gap in offerings and communication. So in future outreach efforts or survey efforts, we can get an understanding of what is relevant, what are some of the newer trends or competitors that may pique the interest of our audience and encourage them to come over to our side versus choosing someone else. And overall, we just want to continue efforts to better understanding barriers. This is not a one and done effort. This is something that we will continue to pulse and learn over the years because we want to continue to show up in service to our community. Next slide. And how this drives our next steps. We are here, meaning towards the left of the slide, where you see that we are preparing to present to the HHS committee next Tuesday, October 15th, as Jay opened this presentation with. And then come January, we plan to present the overall or holistic implementation plan, which will incorporate systems and infrastructure, our outreach and marketing, which is what I mentioned, as well as site activation to make sure that like we saw in Sully, there's some hand-holding or one-to-one engagement to make sure that everyone can comfortably register for our programs, program coordination on an operational level, as well as complete implementation of the sliding fee scale. Jay and Sarah, have I missed anything regarding this particular slide?
No, and I think it's important to note also that we're working hand in hand with DMD on the implementation plan to try to figure out how best to begin using the data that Deidre just discussed and other things as well. So we'll be doing that in tight coordination with DMD.
Good deal. Is there any discussion? Are there any questions?
Bill, before we do questions, two members joined us during the presentation, so I'm going to read them in, and then we'll open up questions to the whole board. Linwood, could you please state your name and the location from which you are calling?
This is Linwood Gorham. I'm calling from my home in the Mount Vernon Magisterial District. And sorry I'm late. I've been madly trying to get online for 20 minutes. And the only way I did is with my IT son's help. So I apologize to everybody for being late.
Faisal, could you do the same?
This is Faisal Khan at my residence Providence District and late for the same business.
Thank you. All right, Bill, back to you.
All right. Any questions? Any discussion?
I have
Jim?
a question, Bill. Yes, thank you. So this covers one of the prongs of our equity consultants approach. I'm delighted with the success of this pilot program. I'm really looking forward to seeing it roll out full scale. But my question was, we had two other potential approaches which can be used to supplement the approach we're taking here. One was to reduce the costs of programs based upon a public benefit analysis, and the second one was a subsidy. And are we going to continue to pursue those at later points in time?
So I'll take that question for right now. I think that yes. The quick answer is yes. However, we really want to use strong data to figure out what our next steps are. It's the Sully pilot really, in our opinion, has proved the efficacy of a sliding fee scale. And so with outreach and looking into people's barriers and a sliding fee scale, we really want to hit those things that we feel are the biggest barriers first. Pause for a second after we do that, reanalyze and see what our numbers look like, where we are, and then go to the next step. If we do them all at the same time, there's really no way of understanding where the power and the strong push is, and that's really where we want to put our resources.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Seeing that there's none, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Kyle, back to you.
Thanks, Bill. We have to sit tight for about a minute or two. The next committee meeting is slated to start at 6:20 p.m.
Hello?
Hey, sorry, everybody. I don't have the benefit of the meeting documentation. So if I have any parts in it, if you could kind of tip me to that, that'd be great.
Oh, will do, Linwood. I think you're clear tonight, but I'll check.
I think there's a park operations committee meeting. I thought there was. I might be mistaken though.
Yeah, no, you got it. Yes, you're right.
Just go, Linwood.
Okay, you're right. Got it.
All right, it's 6:20. This we can adjourn our very short recess and get back into it. Mike, the Park Services Committee is up and you're on the docket.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate that. I'm calling the Park Services Committee to order. And I'm not sure who I'm handing the golf presentation off to.
Yeah, you're handing it off to Ryan Carmen, Golf Division Director. Thank you, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan.
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. I will be presenting the Golf Division overview. The topics I'll be touching on tonight will be national trends, pre-COVID versus post-COVID financials, introducing the newest position to the Golf Division, the Director of Agronomy. I'll go through the course-by-course projects and end with what I'm calling leveraging technology. Joining me for a few different slides on this presentation will be the Director of Agronomy, Carmen Giannini, and towards the end of the presentation, the Marcom Division Director, Deidre Grayson, will be joining. Next slide. So to jump right in, national trends and kind of setting the stage for the next few slides after this one. A real quick snapshot of this slide is that golf is still very much growing. The annual growth of rounds we are now seeing is being seen or widely being considered the new normal. So comparing 2019 to 2023, nationally speaking, there was a 20% increase in rounds. And I'll speak to Golf Fairfax's rounds in a few slides. Two specific points that I'll touch on this slide or underneath the chart, the last 2 points there. More weekday rounds are being made possible by greater work flexibility, with more people having control over when and where they work. In relation to Golf Fairfax and our 7 golf sites, we are certainly seeing more weekday rounds and have seen more weekday rounds since we came out of the pandemic. And actually to the point where on Fridays, we implemented a Friday rate because we were seeing a higher demand on Fridays than the other weekdays. So the Friday rate is a higher rate than the Monday through Thursday, but a lower rate than the weekends, all staying within the fee schedule structure of rates. And then that last slide, or the last point, new technologies are making it easier for golfers to identify and book available tee times while operators are better able to fill late openings. I will certainly touch on that point towards the end of this presentation, but the one technology we have adapted and implemented is helping tremendously. Next slide. So a lot of fun stuff to look here, and we can certainly go in many different conversation topics about these numbers. So looking at that red line, to the left of that line is what I'm calling pre-COVID, so fiscal year 19 and 20. To the right of that red line is what I'm considering post-pandemic, coming out of COVID. In FY20 to FY21, specifically in relation to revenue, there was an immediate 61% increase, so 9.4 million. And the next year, when the country opened back up, we immediately jumped to a little over 15 million. And again, for the next 3 slides, I'll mostly be comparing FY19 directly to FY24. So with revenue, there was an 85% increase in revenue. There was a 33% increase in salaries and benefits, 61% increase in operating expenses, and the net, and I almost feel like I'm lying when I say this out loud, there was an increase of 4,100% in net profit. But specifically speaking to the salaries and benefits, coming out of FY20 into 21, salaries did grow, as you can see, mostly due to hours worked, due to the increased rounds, the increased businesses. However, as the years go on, salaries grew even more, mostly because the compression study increases kicked in, minimum wage had gone up, and that's all paired with the annual MRAs. And then with the operating expenses, pulling that line item out to speak to.
Whoops, did it freeze for everybody else?
Yes.
Yes. Ryan, can you hear us?
If you guys could, if there's an alternative way that you can contact Ryan and let him know that he's no longer being heard by us, I'm sure he may be continuing to talk.
I'm calling him right now.
Thank you, ma'am. For the record, Kyle, you shouldn't hold this against me if we run late.
I don't know why. I think you're responsible for the internet connection.
Okay, he'll be right with us. He's moving to another device.
Awesome. Thank you. Ryan, we can see you moving now.
Do you hear
I
me?
don't know if you can hear us.
You hear me?
Yes, we can see you and hear you now.
Weird. I am so sorry. Nothing on my computer. I didn't get any alerts that the Wi-Fi went out. Okay. As long as you can hear me. So I think I left off at operating expenses.
Yeah, you left off at the fact that you guaranteed that next year we'd have an 8,200% increase.
I don't remember saying that, but we're going to try. So I'll start over with the operating expenses. So pre-pandemic,
right?
Yeah, thank you. So pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic, obviously the cost of businesses have gone up. The cost of business gone up, and we really see the inflation and the increase in expenses really kicking in FY23 and 24. So FY21 was the all-star, the peak of our expenses, and of course the net being 4.6. So that's the answer, short but sweet, of why operating expenses have continually grown, is just mostly due to cost of business and the inflation of it all. So next slide. Rounds and range summary. Again, to the left, pre-pandemic of the red line, to the right, post-pandemic. Coming out of the country reopening, FY20 to FY21, rounds played, we immediately saw what was a 51% increase in rounds. And then just like the previous slide, comparing 19 to 24, we saw a 53% increase in rounds. Greens fees increased 105%. Range revenue increased 120%. And just as a reminder, when we looked at the national trends, nationally, we saw a 20% increase. And again, Gulf Fairfax has seen a 53% increase when comparing those 2 years. T-sheet utilization, or what some call fill rate, pre-pandemic, on average across all 7 sites, utilization was probably around 55 to 70%, depending on time of season, weather, different factors such as that. And then as we have climbed through post-pandemic since FY21, we're seeing a 70 to 95% fill rate. And that obviously is all related to rounds being played. So very, very positive across the board. Next slide. So site-by-site percentage change, again, pre-COVID versus post-COVID. I'm comparing FY19 to FY24. What really stands out, I mean, all 7 courses stand out, but Oakmont definitely takes the gold medal. Revenue, 194% increase. Rounds increased 89%. Greens fees, 173%. Range revenue, 221%. And the net, again, looks like a made-up number, but 3,400% increase. To give you a better visual of total revenue, right below it under the OM, that being Oakmont, FY19 was a little short of 860,000 total revenue, whereas in FY24, it reached $2.5 million. The one course that really stands out, other than Oakmont, is Pinecrest. Pre-pandemic, Pinecrest was simply a dud. It would literally lose money. And to get, another visual again is below PC in that bottom chart. Revenue for FY19 was almost 695,000, whereas in FY24, $1.4 plus million. And what's even more amazing about that is that it has basically caught up to Jefferson District, and Jefferson District is a golf warehouse. So it's very impressive with Pinecrest, the turnaround that we've seen with that facility. And with Twin Lakes, certainly can't leave them out of this conversation. Just going straight to their net, they've seen an increase of 2,200 when comparing 19 to 24. So from 2.3 million in total revenue to 4.3 million in FY24. But all 7 sites, all awesome increases across the board, and hopefully still growing. Next slide. This actually is not the most updated. So what I've included prior to going into this one is growing the game and equity initiatives. So at base level, Gulf Fairfax does have a junior program where we offer 35%.
Yeah, I'm just going to interrupt. This is Mike Thompson. I'm just going to interrupt for a minute. I'm not sure that the slide we're showing matches with your content. At least there's a different slide in the online presentation.
Are you seeing Director of Agronomy right now?
Yeah.
We are.
Yes.
Yeah. So the equity initiatives and growing the game, I must have sent over the wrong slide deck. But I'm going to talk to that before we get into the slide we're all looking at right now.
Okay, I would just note that the one on, for anybody that's listening or goes back to this later, the one that is posted online has, I guess, your additional slide at this point in the presentation.
Okay. So with the growing the game and the equity initiatives, I don't know if it's possible, but I can share the most current PowerPoint. That is helpful.
You should be able to do that since we're on Teams.
I don't know if everybody wants to look at my face that long.
Hey Ryan, you should be able to share now.
Okay, I'm getting ready to just grab it out of one moment. Okay. I did not share the right thing. Okay, does everybody see my screen?
Yep. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Okay, this is not my first smoothest presentation to the board. So growing the game and equity initiatives. At base level, we do offer 35% discount on greens fees at all 7 of our sites. And with the driving range.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There's somebody talking in the background. If you could mute.
And at Burke Lake and Oakmont, it's buy any size bucket and get 1 small bucket free. From a programming, classes, and camp standpoint, at Burke Lake and Pinecrest, with our Park Authority employed instructors, we have classes and camps and programs through Park Takes. And then at Laurel Hill and Twin Lakes with Eisman Golf Academy, they offer junior camps and classes. And at Oakmont with Everybody Golf School, they also offer junior camps and classes. The First Tee program, which we've been connected with and partnered with since 2000.
Frozen.
Uh-oh. I think you're frozen again. I don't know if you can hear us, but you're frozen.
I just let him know.
I think it's the Hurricane Milton.
I would defer to you all about whether or not we want to wait for him or let our new director introduce himself. I don't know the best way that staff would like to proceed.
Ryan is trying to get on his phone, so maybe Carmen, the problem is Ryan is showing the slide.
I mean, that's.
If you want to speak to your slide, Carmen, and then we can show your picture when we get back in.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can continue. My name is Carmen Giannini. I am the new director of agronomy. Oh, I think Ryan's back.
Yeah, I'm back. However, I don't think so. I'm on my phone now. Can you guys see me? Can you still see me?
We can.
Yes.
Yes.
You can still, okay, so I'm good. I am so sorry. So I was speaking to the First Tee program. Actually, no, I finished up that side of the part of it. The Youth on Course. So the Youth on Course is the national program that we got started with back in March of 23 at Oakmont and Burke Lake. In essence, what this position is, or what this is the junior golfer walks into Burke Lake or Oakmont and pays $5. Since we started in March of 23, so March through December of 23, we had 1,000 rounds played combined. And now January of 24 through basically today, we've had around 1,800 rounds. So we're come December, as we end calendar year 24, we should hit around 3,000 rounds of youth on course.
Ryan, I don't know if it was you on purpose, but we've lost the slide presentation. So I don't know if staff wants to pull it back up or how we want to do that, but.
Let's ask Diane to pull it back up, please.
Yeah, so we will end up right where we need to be when Diane pulls it up with the director of agronomy.
Okay, thanks. I apologize for interrupting you so much.
No, that's okay. My tech just doesn't seem to be working today. Okay, now on to this handsome fella. So in November, when I rolled into this position as director, November of 2022, when I rolled into the division director position, I quickly realized that I needed to create a position that would guide the agronomic side of the operation to create an even better customer experience from a course condition perspective. And to better equip our superintendents with education and with tools to better do their jobs due to the increase of business and rounds of golf being played. So right off the bat, I did some market research. First, I reached out to the NGCOA, which is the National Golf Course Owners Association. They then directed me to a few different multi-course operators. One was in San Antonio, which is technically the Alamo City Golf Trail, the city of Denver, and then also a high-end multi-course facility outside of Chicago called Cog Hill. And of the directors I spoke to with each of those businesses, if you will, they all energetically agreed that for a multi-course operator, excuse me, a director of agronomy is a necessity, and they said they don't know how they had worked without one in the past. So to sum up what the main responsibilities are, the director of agronomy has oversight of each course's agronomic program, oversight of equipment, training and development, and the quality and consistency of turf conditions. Fast forwarding to spring of 23, Carmen accepted the position, and very quickly and literally hit the ground running. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Carmen Giannini.
All right. Well, thank you, Ryan, for that lovely introduction. And I'm so sorry everyone's had to look at my big face there on the screen for so long. But my name is Carmen Giannini. I'm really, really excited to be with the Park Authority. I come from over 30 years on the private side. So coming to the public side was quite a paradigm shift for me, a little different different pace and a different way of thinking, but I have adjusted well and embraced the culture of the county and really appreciate everyone welcoming me so well. We can go to, I won't go to the next slide, Ryan. I'll just start to summarize. What I'd like to do is summarize the projects that we've done over the last year. Majority of those have been irrigation projects. And I'll just start off with Burke Lake, where we completed a full irrigation system replacement. The system there was extremely outdated and in just disarray. Different heads, different styles of heads. Nothing was really consistent. So we replaced the central controller at the computer, the sprinkler heads, and the pump station, which is a significant upgrade and will help that team immensely keep that course in good condition year round. At Oakmont, we installed a pump station, which will allow them to improve their water distribution and overall reliability. I had the opportunity between superintendent hires to spend the summer, about 6 months at Oakmont, acting as the superintendent there. So I got a hands-on view of the challenges that Oakmont faced, and the pump station shutting down in the middle of the night and not irrigating properly was a huge problem, and really glad that we were able to get that remedied.
Carmen, if I can just stop you real quick. Before we go on, I just want to make a quick note from a driving range perspective. Definitely not as important as what Carmen is doing with the irrigation projects. We did get new tables and chairs, along with 4 new range ball dispensers paired with Select Pi technology, which I'll speak to in later slides. Next slide. Okay, here we go.
So yeah, I touched on Oakmont with their irrigation upgrades. Next slide. Jefferson did not receive has not received any irrigation upgrades, but we added some new T signage and also on a smaller scale, new flags, new embroidered custom flags and flag sticks. And that's going to be something that if you go out to the courses, you're going to see new flag sticks with prisms built into the flag sticks for rangefinders, and nice embroidered flags that are going to provide consistency of presentation across the board at all of our courses. Next slide. Moving on to Pinecrest, we installed a new central controller and field satellites there as well. That's going to give them a better handle on being able to schedule irrigation. There were problems with irrigation scheduling, so at times the irrigation was not running when it was scheduled, so the reliability there was suspect. And really most importantly, in addition, was we performed a pond dredging project. The pond there had lost, I would estimate, about 75 to 80% of its volume due to siltation over the years. And it had gotten to the point where it had covered up the intake of the irrigation system and was not allowing the pumps to pump properly. So we were able to get that project finished up right before the summer started, which was fortuitous because we needed that water this summer. So I was happy with the way that turned out, and the water quality has improved, and so is the irrigation system. Next slide. Over at Laurel Hill, we installed a pump station, state of the art. Ryan, the superintendent at Laurel Hill, has had his fair share of nightmares with his irrigation system, and I was so happy that he was able to get a new pump station that he can rely on and hopefully get some more sleep at night. But this pump station is going to allow Laurel Hill to keep pace with the cutting edge technology that is the latest and greatest irrigation. Next slide. Greendale has not received any irrigation upgrades to date. They are on the docket with future funding to receive numerous upgrades as, like I said, funding is available. But they too added some T signage to help navigate around the course, And then we added 8 forward tees, which will make the course more accessible to all skill levels. Next slide. Twin Lakes, it received irrigation upgrades. You're going to see a theme here. The central controller and the field satellites were all replaced with Rainbird irrigation. And then we made a significant switch by converting the driving range tee from bent grass to Bermuda grass. The reason we did that is Bermuda grass is a more resilient turf grass, and it will offer us increased usage due to its recuperative capacity in the summertime. So we'll be able to use that surface more frequently. Next slide. Well, I'll just go. I have some other ones, but finally, we had some moderate improvements. Like I said, we're continuing to upgrade, not just on a major scale like this. These projects that I just outlined represent roughly $1.5 million worth of funding. But we are also looking to make upgrades on a smaller scale, the detailed items, things that we can do to separate ourselves from our competition and also improve the customer experience. So with that, I'll hand it back to Ryan, but I want to thank you all, and I look forward to continuing improvements with the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Nope. If you can go back, please. So as I spoke to in the national trend slide, that last point I had made about leveraging technology and using technology to grow rounds and grow revenue, we found this new technology that started less than a year and a half ago. It's called Notify. Notify exists to drive more revenue with less effort by alerting golfers instantly when cancellations occur within their preferences. So basically, it's an automated waitlist booking assistant. So a golfer goes into Notify, selects his or her preferences, number of players, days of the week, time of day, and if a tee time is canceled or released within their preferences, the golfer, he or she gets a text and email, and it directs them directly to our booking engine to book a tee time as normal. We went live with Notify across all 7 sites in February, and through August, almost 2,200 rounds have been booked due to cancellations, which has equated to almost $117,000. So in theory, that's 2,200 rounds that may have not gotten booked. Next slide. From a driving range perspective, so at Burke Lake, Oakmont, Twin Lakes, we have what we call Select Pi, which is the operating software of our range dispensers. And really where this comes into play is with and for what we call our range Flex Pass. So in essence, across Oakmont, Burke Lake, and Twin Lakes, a golfer loads up a card with a dollar value. And then at that point, the golfer can go to any of those 3 sites, scan the card, balls drop out, and they go hit the range. There is not a need to come into the clubhouse until they have to refill the card. And again, they can use it at Burke Lake, Oakmont, or Twin Lakes, which has never been able to be done before. And the hope is that by spring, summer at the latest, we have Laurel Hill online as well. And next slide. And the last slide. We hope to introduce a golf app here in the coming months. The vendor of choice would be Gallus, as they are directly partnered with Notify, which is a plus. And this is where Deidre is going to jump in, but before she does, it definitely has a marketing communications perspective to the app, but it also is an app that will create a more positive customer experience with GPS, both for the golf course and for the driving range. Golfers will be able to keep score directly on the app. Staff will be able to manage events and scoring. And then from the marketing communication side, Deidre is going to take a minute to explain from that standpoint.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. Again, Deidre Grayson, Division Director for Marketing and Communications Division. So when it comes to the golf division and the golf audience, they are truly engaged. Roberta Corzin, Emmy Porter, and Divya on Ben's team do a great job with promoting what events, amenities, promotions that we're offering across our golf system via email and via social, and really driving that awareness with those who choose and opt in to engage. But what makes our audience so fertile to test is their willingness to engage with us at different touch points, and that's where the mobile first solutions like Gallus come into place. And so we're able to offer a centralized hub of all of our golf courses under the brand of FCPA. So one, we get credit of the fact that we have our courses under the Park Authority moniker. And then we're able to bridge offline with online, as Ryan said, to increase or enhance the customer experience and even tap into things not just on the green, but also hospitality. I think there are some capabilities within the app where you're able to add to your point of sale with meals, with beverages. You're able to plan your next trip, and then you're also able to engage on the back end as well. And I think having 3 solid apps with Gallus, Notify, in play, we can definitely test and see on the back end how they all are working together with as a full tech ecosystem and supporting of the golf, objectives, whether they be revenue or whether they be engagement. So really excited to test this once this comes down in winter and spring, and excited to learn more.
Okay, thank you, Deidre, and
Ryan.
thank you for everyone. And I greatly apologize for the tech issues that I've had. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Unless there are any really pressing questions, we are 12 minutes behind at this point. I know we have a number of other committee meetings. One thing I did want to note, one of the board members has been very interested in kind of, are we maximizing use of tee times, the marketing, some of those kinds of things. And maybe what I'll do is connect with you, and maybe we'll just try and get a list of questions, but you might be able to answer those separately instead of through coming back to the board in the near future, but maybe try and get an understanding of that. One question I did have, just generally speaking, we did I think the last time we did a real outside analysis of the golf system was in the beginning of 2012. I think the analysis was done in 2011 and the report was given to us in early 2012. And, at some point and I don't need an answer tonight, but curious about whether or not we should do get an analysis done of where we are compared to other systems for folks who have not been on the board necessarily and aren't as old as I am. Way back then in 2012, because I pulled up the report which was given to us in January of 2012. Because of debt service and other things, we were actually losing money on a number of the golf courses. We were having lots of issues that have all been turned around, and things have really changed. But I think the whole market has changed. And I just wonder if we should be looking at best practices in other places, Ryan. I don't know how you feel about that, but just generally.
I'd certainly be open to that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I think that would help with some of the questions I've gotten from some of the at least one of the new board members. I don't see anybody jumping up and down to say they have a question.
I have a question.
Is it okay? Please.
Yeah. Quickly, slightly off, but totally on subject in other ways. I was asked at a meeting last night about a relationship that was in the news or something like that, an article about George Mason University saying that Laurel Hill was now their official golf course or something like that. Can you speak to that? Just 30-second description of what's going on with that.
Sure. So George Mason golf team, long story, they've been practicing at been using Laurel Hill as their home course for quite some time. And we wanted to formalize it. So with Sarah, and George Mason, we created a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with the university, where the golf team practices at the course at no charge, and then dependent on the number of rounds and associated revenue, we then use GMU's Fieldhouse Park Authority uses GMU's field house for programming efforts. So it's a win-win for both George Mason and for the Park Authority.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like it. Hey, if you can you forward me a little blurb on that? I hope I'm assuming you have something. When I ask this, I'm assuming you have something kind of already written up, so I can forward it to the people that asked me about this last night. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you all. And seeing nobody else saw anything that they have a question, I will adjourn this meeting and try and get us back on time, sort of.
All right, before we start, this is Kyle Stone again. Before we start the next committee, we had another board member join us. Jonah, if you could please state your name and the location from which you're calling.
Jonah Toomey, and I'm calling from my house in the Drainsville district.
Thank you very much. All right, Ken, back to you. Ken, you're up.
Ken, you're muted.
While we're waiting for Ken, if he doesn't mind, I'll go ahead and ask Brendan Hannafin to begin his presentation.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Brendan Hannafin, the Park Development Director. And we had a really good second quarter of 2024. That was April through July. And I'm going to run through the projects that we've completed based on magisterial district. We'll start with next slide. Next slide, please. All right, so our one countywide project was the Bike to Parks bike rack installation project, phase 2. We've had a phase 1. We put a lot of them out already. It's part of the EIP program, which is the Environmental Improvement Program. They have custom Park Authority logos. Parks were prioritized by using the Park Racial Equity Index, the PARE, and the Population Index, and the additional 30 bike racks were purchased and are being stored by Park Ops staff for use in future projects. So we've got more to come. That was scoped out at $75,000 with a final cost of $54,000, and Doug was the manager of that project. Next slide. Braddock District, next slide. Okay, Audrey Moore Rec Center roofing replacement. The scope of work included replacing the existing roof with a new high-performance 2-ply modified bitumen membrane roof system, including code-compliant insulation, edge material, new drains. That's code compliance pretty important because that's something as we do these upgrades, they have to continue to be code compliant with a modern code. And this building is not modern. The estimate was $3.7 million. It came in at $2.8 million, and you'll see this as a nice thing as we go forward. That it seems like maybe construction costs have and inflation have temporarily, hopefully more than temporarily, slowed down quite a bit. So you'll see this as we go forward. Mohammed completed this project back in February. Next slide. For the Drainsville District. Next slide, please. Spring Hill Rec Center ESCO phase 2 main building improvements. This was an incredibly big project and incredibly worthwhile. It was geothermal, which is HVAC, with wells drilled into the ground for taking the heat out of the ground. Solar, hot water boiler upgrades, lighting upgrades, building automation systems, water efficiency improvements, and building envelope improvements. And this project will save us a lot of energy going forward. It was funded by the County Office of Environmental and Energy Coordination and the Park Authority. The scope was $6.5 million. We do know the scope estimates before we put the final project together, so they're usually the same number. And the final project cost is $6.5 million for this. Completed in June of 2024. Next slide. Still at Spring Hill and still phase 2 was the pool unit replacement. Demo of existing pool units, structural reinforcement of the roof, installation, startup of new pool dehumidification units, again funded by the Office of Environmental and Energy Coordination. We use, at the Park Authority side, we used ARPA funds and CIP funds for part of that. That was just shy of $2 million. Next slide. In the Hunter Mill District. Lake Fairfax Park. This seems like forever ago that we finished this project, but there's a lot going on. The inline skate rink was completed. That is a partnership with the CAPS. Our part of that project on the budget side was to prep the site, get permits, prep the site, stormwater management facilities, asphalt pad, gravel parking lot, lighting, bleacher pads, and bleachers. The CAPS provided the skate rink dasher board system, which is basically the big oval, and the flooring. This was funded by proffer and bond funds, and of course the CAPS provided some as well. $1.5 million. Kelly did that project, and it had great attendance at the opening. That was pretty exciting to see. Next slide. For the Mason District. Next slide. Green Springs. Okay, I think this is, can we go back one more, I think? Okay, Green Springs Garden Moongate project. The Moongate is a sculptural stone wall with a circular opening. It serves as a portal or passageway into the adjacent concentric garden. Funding was provided by donations from a sole benefactor. The remaining balance of that donation will be applied to phase 2 at a later date. We worked very closely with our friends over in RMD. With the donor to develop the Moongate concept, and Bowman Engineering provided the building permit drawings. Just pretty neat project. We estimated at $500,000. It came in at $406,000. So there are funds left over to do some more work out there, primarily, I believe, landscaping. Doug handled that project as well. Next slide. Well, I will mention that the stone is local, but it's really hard to find. So it's sometimes those projects can be difficult just because of the materials. In Nottoway Park, we have trail improvements. The pave and enhance existing stone dust trails, pave existing failing asphalt. This funding is part of that money we've been getting for the last 3 years from the carryover from the county park, the board through DOT, and we've been really successful in spending that money to get a lot of projects done. This came in at $37,000, and Pat Rosen was our project manager. Next slide. The White House Gardens house demolition. We demolished the existing house at White Gardens Park. While doing so, we protected the existing vegetation, which of course that's the reason for the park. And the project was funded by the park board. We came in just under our estimate at just about $214,000. It was completed in May, and Sam was our project manager. Next slide. In the Mount Vernon district. Lake Mercer Park trail repair. That's what it is, a repair to the Lake Mercer trail system. Projects included installation of new culverts, milling and overlay of trails, and repair of areas with drainage issues, which, as you can imagine, we're seeing a lot more of. It's a lot more rain, a lot more drainage issues. This project was again funded with the carryover funds from the board. The project was estimated at $225,000 and came in at $130,000. Kelly Davis was our project manager. It was completed in July. Next slide. Do I have any more? Oh, yeah, okay. Laurel Hill Park restroom facility. It's a pretty nice restroom, I'll tell you that much. The building footprint was included in the original Park Central Green development, but held off on doing the work. That's a 32 by 52 building. Site work included new ADA walkways, utilities, and related amenities. The project was funded by the General County Construction Funds, and it was $2.27 million. Next slide. Gil McCutcheon Park swing installations. We installed some new swings on the existing playground, something we're trying to do more of. It was funded with private donations and a Madison Brook grant, and the project was almost $23,000, and Pat handled that as well. Next slide. Springfield District. Next slide, please. Patriot Park North concession construction. The scope included constructing the commercial kitchen area of the park with kitchen appliances and related amenities. It was funded through various parts of our bond, It was spec'd out to be $462,000, and this is one of the first projects we started to see the turnaround in pricing because we priced it that way because Patriot Park was built and finished in the middle of a pretty tough time. Project cost was $289,000. It was completed in July, and Melissa and Mohammed were the project managers on that. We were a little later than we wanted to be on that one because of some issues with the equipment, but it's done now and ready for use. Next slide, please. Rolling Valley West Park Athletic Field Irrigation, funded through the 2020 bond. The final cost was $307,000. SOM completed that in June of this year. Next slide, please. Sully District. Next slide. Rocky Run Stream Valley Park, bridge repair. The scope of work included water diversion, shoring up the footers underneath the bridge, a new riprap to protect the footers underneath the bridge, parging existing cracks in the stone abutments, and removal of some trees around the area. It was a 2016 bond project, and it came in just under $25,000. Again, we're seeing a lot of these resiliency projects across the area because of the amount of water that's flowing down on streams. I know everybody knows that, but a lot of these projects are based on the both on trying to make our trails and our bridges more resilient. So next slide, please. Is that it?
That's the last slide.
All right, thank you. Well, that was, I think, 14 projects that we completed in that 3-month period, or a little more than 3 months. We have a lot coming this year, and a lot has already been done because we're behind the reporting. But does anybody have any questions?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Thanks, Ken.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Yeah, Ken, I have a question. It's Mike. You mentioned when you were talking about the Springfield ones, I mean, the Patriot North was like more than 35% under the scope estimate, and Rolling Valley West was like, I don't know, 20% plus under the scope estimate. You mentioned that because of the timing of this, of the estimates and stuff. Can you talk a little bit? Are we seeing a dramatic shift that is consistent enough that pricing overall that we're going to get more, we're going to get further with our dollars, or do you think this is a blip?
I'm hopeful that it means we're going to get more with our dollars. Our last 2 projects, Mount Vernon Woods and McLean Central, came in under our estimates with the bids, which, 2 in a row. I think we've actually had 3 in a row that are bid projects that have come in under our estimates. It was bound to come down over time, the inflation rate. I'm hopeful that we're going to stay at this rate or continue to get competitive bids in the future. And the thing with competitive bids is that more people that bid, the lower your price is going to be, obviously. That means people are looking for work. So that's, for us, that's a good sign.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, as you said, Brendan, there's a lot to do, but you have done a lot already.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thanks for stepping in, Tim.
You're welcome. More than happy.
If there's no other comments or questions, Linwood, do you have your hand up? Oh, okay. We will adjourn the Planning and Development Committee meeting.
Thank you, Ken. Linwood, you're up with the Park Ops Committee. Linwood, you're
Linwood, you're muted, Linwood.
Just not my night. Anyway, I'd like to call the Park Operations Committee to order, and in doing so, I think I'm turning it over to Kim.
Thanks, Linwood. Good evening, everyone. Kim Eckert, Division Director, Park Operations Division. Tonight, we have our quarterly project report for the 4th quarter of fiscal year 2024. This report includes projects managed by the Park Operations Division in April through June of 2024. I just want to note that what you'll see here is not all inclusive of every project we've completed during that quarter. Instead, it's just a sampling of Park Operations projects to give you an idea of a wide range of project types we completed. With that, next slide. In the Braddock District, next slide. Wakefield Skate Park site improvements. So with that project, we renovated the storage building and vending machine kiosk. We removed old siding and installed new hardy board siding. We replaced damaged underlayment. We replaced the roof on both structures. This was funded by the General County Construction Fund. The cost was $26,476. This was completed in April 2024, and the project manager was Russ Davis. Next slide. In the Drainsville district. Next slide. At Clemmy Jontry Park, we completed a restroom renovation. We installed new wall and floor tiles. We installed new plumbing, light fixtures, hand dryers, partitions, LED lights, and vanities. We installed magnetic locks on doors programmed to lock and unlock according to operational hours. We pressure washed the exterior of the building and walkways. This was funded by the General County Construction Fund. The cost was $118,961, completed in May, and the project managers were Alan Crawford and Ron Pearson. Next slide. At McLean Central Park, we completed the athletic court repairs there. So we completed some crack repair and resurfacing. We installed a 2-inch asphalt overlay. We painted new lines, installed new basketball goals, and we added new concrete pads with new benches. This was funded by a Mastonbrook grant fund and as well as donations from the Friends of Thomas A. Mulquin. The cost was just over $62,000. That included a $20,000 match in grant funds. This was completed in June, and the project manager was Marco Suarez. Next slide. Again, at McLean Central Park, we completed another restroom renovation. So we installed new floor and wall tiles, installed new plumbing, LED light fixtures, and vanities. We made updates to this restroom to bring it into ADA compliance. This was funded by the General County Construction Fund. The cost was $81,559, completed in June. And again, the project managers were Alan Crawford and Ron Pearson. Next slide. The Franconia District. At Franconia Park, we completed the athletic court reconstruction. So this is both for the racket courts and the basketball courts. So this included a full reconstruction of the racket courts. We milled and replaced the asphalt surface and stone base, removed and replaced net posts, fencing, and gates, applied resurfacer, color coding, and playing lines. We did convert 1 tennis court to 4 dedicated pickleball courts and relined 1 tennis court to dual use. We also, this left 2 dedicated tennis courts. Another part of this project was the full reconstruction of the 2 basketball courts. Again, we milled and replaced the asphalt surface and stone base. We replaced all 4 goals, applied resurfacer, color coding, and playing lines. This was funded by the Sinking Fund, and all the courts over there cost $440,508. This was completed in June, and the project manager was Marco Suarez. Next slide. At Franconia Rec Center, we did some office flooring upgrades. The carpet tiles that were formerly used at Laurel Hill Golf Course Clubhouse were repurposed to upgrade the flooring in the offices at Franconia Rec Center. This was funded by the General County Construction Fund. The cost was just under $5,000, completed in May, and the project manager was Russ Davis. Next slide. At Franconia Rec Center, we made some classroom flooring upgrades. We installed new flooring in all 4 classrooms and the art room. This included a total of 4,310 square feet of new flooring. This was funded by General County Construction Fund. The cost was just under $68,000, completed in May, and the project manager was Russ Davis. Next slide. At Jefferson Manor Park, we completed an athletic court refurbishment. This project included, we repaired numerous cracks on the basketball court, installed a 2-inch asphalt overlay, installed new goals. We also applied new acrylic color to upgrade the court from an asphalt surface. So this used to be black asphalt instead of color-coded surface. This project was funded by the Sinking Fund and ARPA funds. Cost was $47,255. This was completed in June, and the project manager was Marco Suarez. Next slide. At Stony Brook Parkstone Mansion, we restored the exterior stairs there. We repaired and restored the rear exterior stairway. We applied galvanized bar grate material to the stair treads to allow water to pass through, extending the lifespan of the stairs. This was funded by the General County Construction Fund. The cost was just under $17,000, completed in May, and the project manager was Russ Davis. Next slide. In the Hunter Mill District at Lake Fairfax, we completed a water mine entrance upgrade. We installed a tent structure at the entrance area of the water mine to shade patrons waiting to enter the admissions area. This was funded by the General County Construction Fund. The cost was $25,490, completed June, and the project manager was Russ Davis. Next slide. In the Mount Vernon District, at Laurel Hill Golf Course, we completed a parking lot restriping project. So this parking lot was completely restriped. This included 7 ADA spaces as well as 200 regular parking spaces. It also included directional striping for the golf cart return path. This was funded by the General County Construction Fund. The cost was just under $8,000, completed in April, and Russ Davis was the project manager. Next slide. In the Providence District, Oakmont Rec Center, we updated all the signage. So this included replacing all the signage to reflect the new name change for the rec center, athletic fields, mini golf, and the golf course. This was funded by General County Construction Fund. The cost was $9,216, completed in June, and the project manager was Russ Davis. Next slide. In the Springfield District, at Pope's Head Park, we made some critical roadway repairs. We removed the old culvert pipe, installed a new 30-inch concrete pipe with concrete head walls, repaired and repaved a significant sinkhole in the roadway. My favorite part of this project is that we avoided an estimated contractor cost of just under $100,000 by completing the project in-house. So this was funded by the General County Construction Fund. The cost was $25,000. Completed in July. The project manager was James Powers, and the work was performed by mobile construction crew in park operations. Next slide. At South Run Stream Valley Park, we completed a trail renovation project. So we elevated the paved trail and performed shoulder restoration, installed riprap at the culverts, and the restoration addressed impacts of beaver activities nearby. Beavers tend to be a challenge for us out there. Funded by the General County Construction Fund, the cost was $34,443, completed in April, and the project manager was Marco Suarez. Next slide. Any questions?
Mike, no, I'm sorry, that's a blip. I don't see anybody's hand. Am I missing anything?
No.
All right. I think that means that you did a really good job, Kim. No questions at all. Thank you very much. With that said, I'm going to adjourn the Park Operations Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Linwood.
Okay, everybody. This is Maggie Godbold, and I'd like to call to order the Resource Management Committee meeting, and I'll turn it directly over to John Burke.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Burke. I'm the Natural Resources Branch Manager for Fairfax County Park Authority, and I'll be speaking with you all today to provide our annual report. Next slide, please. So as you've seen in the past, our branch has 5 tenants that are outlined in our Natural Resource Management Plan. The 5th one will be newly added this year, but reflects a new program that's been added to our efforts over the last 2 years. But these are, in summary, inventory, protection, restoration, stewardship, and ecological maintenance. Next slide, please. This year, apologize for the graphics error there. This year represents a reorg for the Natural Resources Branch. So we are now part of the Stewardship and Planning Division, and this is intended to bring us in closer coordination with our cohorts in planning and development to ensure that natural resources are playing an integral role in the development and planning process within Park Authority. You can see outlined there our branch. If we go to the next slide, we'll look at it in more detail. This is the breakdown of my program. Here you can see the 5 tenants of the natural resources branch reflected. The blue folks are merit staff. The green folks are non-merit 1560-hour e-status employees. And the yellow folks on there are 900-hour employees. You can see that we have nearly a full roster. Our summer interns, of course, are not with us at this time of year, and we have 1 vacancy within the IMA and Bamboo Management Program, or our stewardship efforts, and 1 vacancy within the Helping Our Land Heal program. We'll go over how each of these tenants and respective programs have changed over the last 2 fiscal years in later slides. Next slide, please. For our inventory efforts, we continue to do field work in support of the Central and Southern Area Natural Resource Management Plans. Our botanist, Nelson DeBarros, has mapped over 1,300 acres of natural vegetation this year, including rare natural communities, which he classifies, scores, and documents. We also identify rare plants as part of these efforts. We assess many parks, 9 parks this year, and 100 specific survey plots for deer browse impact, assessing the impacts of overabundant white-tailed deer populations on our parks. And we will continue to do this in support of our natural resource management plans for the following fiscal years. This year, we found 6 rare natural plant occurrences in addition to the ones we found in the past, and we've also documented 6 occurrences of rare bat species. On top of that, the inventory program plays a role in our permit request process. That this is requests for anything from scientific research studies to school projects that might impact parkland. So in total, we reviewed 76 of those this year. Next slide, please. When we look at our inventory and planning branch, we can see how things have changed over the last fiscal year. So we now have 2 merit full-time staff in that program, Dave Lawler, the program manager, and Nelson DeBarros, our botanist. Formerly, we had a 1560 Ecologist 2 position, but that position is now shifted over to the Resource Management Division to help with staffing at specific sites. In addition to that, I will note that Nelson DeBarros' position was converted to a full-time employee in FY22. So we're continuing to work towards a solid and stable workforce of ecologists on the team. And that includes providing more opportunities for full-time merit staff. Let me clarify that Nelson DeBarros' position was not itself converted to a full-time employee position, but the vacant position, the one that you see here in green, that was his previous role. We vacated a 1560 position, converted it to merit. He applied for and got the position. So we're happy to say that he is now a full-time merit position with the branch and has been for the last year and a half. Next slide, please. Our protection program, this is where we engage with planning and development projects on parkland, as well as overseeing comments and reviews from a natural resources perspective for private projects or other projects that might impact Park Authority property like DPW ES efforts. These numbers have grown greatly. Nick Junaski is our 1 employee in this program, and I also support this effort. We can see we have 174 development plans reviewed, 26 park project teams that we've been part of, 39 public works projects, including stream restorations on parkland, 7 encroachments, and 6 potential land acquisitions, all within our review. Sometimes these projects will receive multiple plan review cycles per year, so we are counting each individual review as a separate review on these metrics. And these numbers have gone up greatly as we've gotten closer with our planning and development team, integrated ourselves more with their projects, and also ensured that we are being kept in the loop with both private projects that are impacting parkland, but also those from public works. I'll also note, and something that was outlined last year, was that we've made substantial progress in this program towards the development of our mitigation funding list. Specifically from private projects where trees are being impacted, we've made a lot of headway in getting approved funding for mitigation efforts where we're noting impacts on Park Authority property. One such case here is the Dominion right-of-way near Elk Lake Park, where we received funding for tree loss that that Dominion had to remove in order to avoid those trees falling on their power lines. Next slide. And this is a very small program. So Nick Junaski represents the sole member of this group. He does 90% of the plan review for the Natural Resources branch and has 90% of the mitigation discussions, although I also support this effort. Next slide, please. Managing wild populations and restoring ecosystems. This captures components of our inventory program, but also the Helping Our Land Heal program, our ecological restoration efforts. In total, to include efforts also by the IMA program, we treated about 1,000 acres for invasive non-native vegetation this year. In partnership with Fairfax County Police, we harvested or supported the harvest of 660 white-tailed deer, oiled 85 Canada goose nests, and I think this is a record for this year, burned 135 acres through our prescribed burn program. For the coming year, our prescribed burn program will probably not be hitting this number. Our prescribed burn program lead has departed the branch. However, we will continue our prescribed burn efforts and just completed our annual prescribed burn training yesterday. We have a large cohort of volunteers and employees who are willing to support the program, and we're anticipating burning at the same parks that we've burned at in previous years. So if you have heard from me about a park in your district that we're going to burn, rest assured that it will be on that list, and you're not going to hear about any new parks this year. So on the list, Elk Lick, Poplar Ford, Huntley Meadows, Eleanor C. Lawrence Park, Green Spring Gardens, and Laurel Hill. We are being conservative with our efforts this year as we engage more of our staff to step into a leadership role in the prescribed burn program. And we're going to be reinforcing our burn efforts at parks where we have established restorations to ensure that those burns are conducted safely in areas that we're familiar with and in the areas that we've invested funds previously to ensure that we are continuing to reinvest in those restoration efforts. Some examples of those restoration efforts that are currently in progress you can see below. These include Green Spring Gardens Magnolia Bog, which is wrapping up at least the construction portion of it, earlier this year, but there'll be much to do when it comes to stewardship and engagement with site staff, volunteers, and the Friends group on that effort. Frying Pan Farm Park actually will be wrapping up this fall. We have one final tree planting at that site, and then we'll continue to support it through our Landscape Legacy Maintenance Program. Laurel Hill Park Forest and Meadow restorations continue, as does the wetland work at Old Colchester Park and the Poplar Ford Meadow restorations. Next slide, please. And this is what our restoration team looks like. This is the Helping Our Land Heal program, and Owen Williams, who spearheaded that group, has departed Fairfax County Park Authority, but we have converted, and again, this conversion process works the same way as Nelson's position, Darko Velchkovich's position into a full-time merit position he applied for and got a newly converted merit position. But we are fully staffed in this program with the exception of a program lead. That program lead position closes on October 11th. So I encourage you all to pass it to any constituents, stakeholders, or folks who might know who would be interested in that role. And then I should note as well that Jim Dewing, who supports this program, was added to our program in fiscal year FY22. So you can see that we're continuing to grow our program efforts to reinforce the expansion of our restorations as well as inventory and maintenance. Next slide, please. Here's just a picture of Poplar Ford. Since we're getting into prescribed burn season, I just want to reinforce the importance of this technique and why it's so critical of a tool for implementing change in the landscape. So this is a burn we had this fiscal year, or last fiscal year, excuse me. We will continue to burn Poplar Ford on a rotating cycle for each of the specific fields and burn units for which we've restored. We have 2 burn units this year for Poplar Ford. But if you go to the next slide, you can see some of the impacts that we're already seeing in our current restorations. So this is at Laurel Hill. This is Giles Run Central Meadow. This is one of our restorations that we've only mowed and burned. We have not done any seeding or herbicide use at this site. That is an outlier. Usually one or some combination of those methodologies is required. However, it's always good to see when the natural seed bank at a given site can support meadow restoration work. But that would not be possible without the other methodologies I mentioned, including coarse woody debris removal, mowing, and burning. And we will also be burning this site this year. Next slide, please. As far as fostering stewardship and expanding natural capital, this is largely captured through our volunteer efforts, primarily through the Deer Management Program, which is in support of Fairfax County Police, as well as the IMA program, our flagship stewardship effort. We had 18,000 hours of volunteer management for the IMA program this year. We also address many customer inquiries and have many conversations with members of the public, educational or otherwise. 137 is a rough estimate. We get pulled aside in the field or random phone calls or what have you, text messages. So it's hard to estimate that number, but we are responding to a lot of questions regarding natural capital on parkland. And then we continue to maintain close relationships with many of our nonprofit, private, regional, and academic partners, including a report done by University of Maryland students this year and our ongoing work on the wood turtle study with the Smithsonian. Next slide, please. And these stewardship and expanding natural capital efforts are best represented by our IMA and bamboo management program. You can see how this program has changed over the last 2 fiscal years. So Patricia Greenberg has joined us again as now the program manager for this effort to include management of bamboo projects on parkland. We are nearly fully staffed with this effort. We have 1 vacant position, which is our Ecologist 1 under the IMA program. This position was filled in early FY24 and then quickly vacated for a promotional opportunity also within the branch. So that position is currently vacant and on hold for the ongoing budget discussions. Next slide, please. And speaking of bamboo management, I do want to start addressing this with you all because this has now become a major component of our efforts. Here are 2 sites where we've begun bamboo management in FY24. That's Hogue Park there on the left and Green Spring Gardens on the right. They're a little messy looking now, and they will be for a while because this is going to take 3 to 5 years to fully control these efforts. But we're optimistic that our contractor and our in-house staff will be able to manage these efforts and get them looking nice again. We'll take a look at some of the bamboo sites that are on the docket for FY25. Next slide, please. And these are quite a bit more dramatic with the bamboo in place. Here is Idlewood Park, and you can see that bamboo closely encroaching on Fairfax County Park Authority asset, as well as homeowners' property on the backside. If you go to the next slide, we can see just how close it is to that tennis court. There are 2 patches of bamboo at the site, so we'll be working to tackle bamboo at Idlewood Park. And then one more site I'll show you. We have a long list of parks that are on the agenda, but 2 of the more dramatic examples I want to highlight. You're probably familiar with this site. This is down by Huntley Meadows, Telegraph Road, Old Kings Highway. So this is also on the docket for management this year. Next slide, please. And our newest program, the Landscape Legacy and Sustainability Program, continues to thrive. So we have an established methodology now for floristic quality monitoring on our completed restorations. And we continue to build contractor and in-house support for routine maintenance activities, including mowing or herbivory controls like fence maintenance. We're building expertise within the program and gaining more experience with prescribed fire and heavy equipment operation. And we continue to partner with site staff to reinforce our existing restorations or our completed restorations, including the live staking you see here on the left at Riverbend Park, as well as ongoing efforts at White Gardens and other locations. Next slide, please. And the Landscape Legacy is, again, our newest program. So that is now fully staffed, I'm happy to say, with full-time ecologists. The timing of these 2 charts is a little wonky. Early FY23 is mostly vacant, but we filled out the program with a couple rotations in FY23 for staff. But we are now fully staffed with this program in FY24, and the team's working great together. Next slide, please. In FY25, we have some major activities on the docket. We're going to be completing our phase 1 bamboo mechanical removal and begin treatment. The first step for our bamboo projects is to use a forestry mulcher like we see on the left, or other means of mechanical removal to cut down the shoots and maintain the sites over the long term. We're going to continue to maintain and work on our restoration projects. We have started, as of this last week, our work at Oakmont Park. Continuing monitoring efforts at Huntley Meadows wetlands, as well as some forest restoration work at Huntley Meadows, and then another forest restoration at Cub Run Stream Valley Park as part of the Helping Our Land Heal program. Also, we have received $100,000 in continued funding for tree of heaven removal by the Urban Forestry Division. This is to get in front of spotted lanternfly issues at our parks. So we'll be implementing tree of heaven removal efforts at Laurel Hill, Blake Lane, Riverbend, and the newest addition, Frying Pan Farm Park. We're going to finalize our field work for the central and southern area natural resource management plans, or work towards that end. And then we're going to be reviewing and updating our county-wide or Park Authority-wide natural resources management plan this year. Next slide. And I just want to say that all the efforts that I've talked about today are not just captured by my team, the Natural Resources Branch. They involve many of the folks you see here and many, many more, including volunteers, site staff, nonprofit members, and just folks who are interested in what we have to do. So this is by no means something that we're able to accomplish without this broader support within Park Authority and the public at large. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I do not see hands raised, but that doesn't mean if you've got a question, just speak up. Anyone? No? John, that was great. And the community support for what you do is extensive and growing. So we really appreciate everything you all do. All right, so if there's no questions, then I will adjourn the Resource Management Committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. This is Kyle Stone, and it is 7:36, and I'm calling the October 9, 2024 Park Authority Board meeting to order. Ben, do we have any speakers signed up this evening?
Mr. Chairman, Ben Boxer, Public Information Officer for the Park Authority. We have no speakers signed up this evening.
Great, thank you very much. We have a very short agenda this evening. We have no action items, just one admin item. That's to move the adoption of the minutes of the September 25th, 2024 Park Authority Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
I move that we adopt the minutes. This is Maggie Godbold.
And the
Bill
second?
Bowie, I second.
Thank you, Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, that's it. Chairman's matters, I have nothing this evening other than I'm tired of staring at a computer screen today. Sarah, do we have chairman's matters, or are we not doing that today since Jay's in Atlanta?
We do have a couple of directors matters that I'll go through for
Director's
Jay.
matters.
Yes. Do the PowerPoint. Allison and Diane, would you like me to share it?
I've got it coming up now.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Okay, so here are the director's matters for October 9th. Next slide, please. I think many of you participated in the National Public Lands Day on September 28th. We had a great turnout at all the different sites throughout the county. Dozens of volunteers spent the day removing invasive and cleaning up trash within our parks. And then there was the key celebration at Franconia Rec Center. Chairman Stone, Dr. Cynthia Jacobs Carter, Supervisor Lusk, and Jay were there with dozens of volunteers who did some beautification efforts at the park. Next slide. And then a very exciting new opening. Our second futsal court was opened at Stratton Woods Park last week. Great turnout with the Futsal Association. They gave a clinic and a demo and very well attended event. Very excited to see the growth of futsal at other parks in the future. Next slide. And then one of our friends groups hosted the Parktoberfest. I believe this is the third year they've hosted the event at Eleanor C. Lawrence Park. Close to 2,000 visitors came out for the event. From what I saw on social media, it looked like everyone was having a great time, entertainment, beer, and lots of fun activities for people to participate in. Next slide. And then we're going to start adding this slide to all of the directors' matters moving forward. So you have an idea of the events that are happening in the park. If you'd like to stop by, check them out. You don't necessarily need to be at the event. Some of them will include board member events, but for the most part, it'll just be a summary of all the events happening in the park over the next month. And that's it for me.
Excuse me, Sarah, this is Maggie. Would it be possible to send that last slide with all those dates and activities to the board?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good call. Thank you, Sarah. All right, board member matters. Let's go around my screen. Ken, I'm going to start with you because I see you first.
Okay, I just have one comment, and that's to acknowledge from the presentations we heard tonight, all that's been accomplished by the Park Authority team. Kudos to that team, and I'll include the board in that. That's all.
Thank you, Ken. Maggie?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to thank the park staff for their great support on Parktoberfest, which unfortunately I was not able to attend, but it was a fabulous day and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Linwood?
I'll pass.
All right, Mike?
Pass.
Tim?
I'll just mention that in Lewinsville Park on October 20th from 4 to 6, some of the local environment parks and trails or rec committees are putting together a celebration of trees. I think we're all big tree huggers among our group here, and so you're all welcome to come out and join that. 4 to 6, Lewinsville Park in McLean. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Ron?
I'll pass.
All right. Bill?
Pass.
Jonah?
I'll just add my thanks to staff for those awesome presentations. That was super informational. And I'll see Tim at the Drainsville tree celebration, and otherwise I'll pass.
All right. Dr. Carter?
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody again who turned out for the National Public Lands Day event. It was wonderful. And I would like to say that FY 24 was magnificent, and congratulations to staff for such wonderful work. We're looking forward to a fabulous FY 25 as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. All right, since no one's speaking up, I'm going to assume I did not. We got anything else coming before us before the board this evening, Sarah? I don't think so, right? All right.
I think that's it.
With that, we are adjourned. See you guys in a couple weeks.
Thank you. Good night.